Numbers don't lie. But marketers sure have a hard time parsing the data they get from SaaS tools these days. Software as a services is everywhere. But every vendor has their own data models, their own metrics, their own numbers. What's a marketer to do?
The future is here already. It's just not evenly distributed. Yet. Today's world teems with innovation. The nexus of hardware, software, and human ingenuity promises a revolution in possibilities. What does tomorrow look like? Witness future proof.
Time to rock and roll. We got a show today that's near and dear to my heart. We're going to talk all about marketing by the numbers, trying to understand how marketing technology works, what it does, and how we can all leverage these technologies to better understand what's going on. And I said by the numbers because the bottom line is that it can be hard to understand the numbers. And the reason for that is because all these different companies will do their own models, their own data models, and they have their own rules about how they count things and so forth. And it can be hard to understand how that impacts the numbers that you get on your screen when you're reviewing your data. So these days we talk about the MarTech 7,000. It's actually closer to 8,000. That's 8,000 different software as a service applications, 8,000 of them that you can use to automate some part of sales or marketing. And there are lots of different ways you could do that. Of course, this concept of omni-channel came out recently, which refers to, and the first time I heard, I was like, ooh, actually what I heard was channel expansion. I was like, channel expansion, what is that? Is that like on the cable system or something? They're going to add even more channels. They get thousands of them. No, they're talking about channels of communication. So email is a channel, phone is a channel, direct mail is a channel, but so are LinkedIn direct messages, Instagram direct messages, Twitter direct messages, Facebook direct messages, Signal app. Goodness gracious, there are so many different ways to communicate with people these days. And the smartest companies figure out who likes which channel. So that's the key, is to kind of figure out, okay, well, Jim likes LinkedIn after 5 p.m. Bob only responds on email. Jim, you have to call him or whatever. The smart companies are figuring out who has which preferences and actually refer to that as the right to be respected. So it's kind of fun. But this GDPR stuff we've talked about before, the General Data Protection Regulation out of the EU, is very serious business. Companies are already getting fined for violating that. And they basically say that you have to be much more responsible about how you market to people and how you treat your customer data. Well, they have what's called the right to be forgotten. And that means you can tell XYZ Corp, if you're a citizen of the EU, you can say, hey, I want you to delete all my data. And they're supposed to do that. So I promise they're all figuring out, scrambling how they're going to actually accomplish that. And there are lots of different technologies in that space, but it does affect marketing. And so here with CCPA, the oddly named California Consumer Privacy Act, is even stricter in some cases than GDPR. So big California companies have to worry about that. And these are constraints, they're rules. So that affects the ball game. But at the end of the day, the marketer wants to be able to market to their audience. They want to be able to track all that, understand what it means, understand the impact, and make intelligent decisions. And the problem I see is that, again, everyone has their different ways of measuring, like what is a click versus what's not a click, what's a view on a YouTube video versus not a view. All these things come into play. LinkedIn. I think with LinkedIn, you have to be logged in for your click to count. So that's a factor that comes into play. There are lots of these factors. So let's dive in and talk to our guests. We have Ase Britt, first and foremost. Tell us a bit about yourself and your company and what you're doing in the marketing world.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Ase. I run growth marketing at Terminus. Terminus is an account-based marketing platform, and we help B2B marketers and go-to-market teams target, engage, activate, and measure their best fit accounts to drive opportunities and pipeline for their companies. So my realm of responsibility is everything growth related. So very focused on driving opportunities and pipeline for our growth team through demand gen type of programs and digital marketing to field events and offline stuff, and then account-based marketing as well. We have a pretty robust ABM center of excellence that we have internally using our platform. So we measure all kinds of things. We take very much a multi-channel approach within our platform and just with our whole marketing strategy.
That's cool. So what do you think about this challenge of the numbers? Like, I mean, obviously you've got your own metrics that you manage and that you monitor, that you deal with. What do you think about the broader problem of trying to get some reconciliation across all these different systems? Is that just bespoke? Does everyone have to figure that out on their own, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is a challenge. We use different types of platforms. Like you said, they have different definitions. We measure engagement. That's kind of a key factor, especially for our own account-based marketing programs. But what does engagement mean? And it means different things to different people. So I think you have to be really crisp and clear on what it means to your company. One of the things that I like about our own platform is you can kind of decide what level of engagement do you define as engagement. So you can say like intent data is a level of engagement, or you can say, no, they have to actually be a campaign responder is a level of engagement, or they have to have visited the website in the last X amount of days. And so there's some flexibility in terms of the measurement, because I think businesses have different sales cycles and how they want to measure what's engagement and what's not. But companies do have different types of, definitions of that. So I think you have to be clear on what your definition is and what you want to measure as a fully engaged, prospect or account that you're working with.
Yeah, so that's a great way to work with it, right? And when you do account-based marketing, you're basically trying to help organizations get into all sorts of different touch points within a prospective client, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you get to a director, you want to get to the managers, you want to get to the senior level people. That's pretty complex. I mean, do you have underneath the hood, if you will, do you have a sort of model for understanding the hierarchy at the organization, or is that too sophisticated?
Yeah, we have some very specific personas that we definitely go after, and we do have to kind of understand who the buying committee is. And it varies depending on the size of company too. So it kind of depends on, are we looking at, smaller organizations, mid-size to enterprise, where you're going to have a lot of people that are involved, in the decision making and are going to influence the decision. The other thing that challenge, or not challenge, I guess it's an opportunity really, is we have we're a full platform, but then we have different components of our platform. So we have our display and retargeting that you can use for targeted accounts, but we also have web personalization and a chat product. So depending on the account and the campaign that we're running, the people that we're going after within those organizations may change slightly. So we do have to take like a very strategic approach when we're going after these accounts, depending on where we see the white space and where the opportunity is in who we're going after.
Do you have any particular verticals that you focus on, or is there any particular kind of company that you look for as your prospect?
For us, I mean, because our platform can be used by B2B marketers, that's primarily, that's a huge TAM that we have. There are certain industries where we have more success, I would say. Not that we only solely focus on those, but SaaS companies, there tend to be, early adopters of technology too. So we find we have a big presence there. We also, work in fintech and ed tech and companies like that. And then also some manufacturing, because those types of companies are organizations that tend to have a very focused ideal customer profile of who they're trying to reach based on what they're trying to sell. So those types of organizations also benefit from our product.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. ABM, as it's called, account-based marketing. It's really quite a hot topic these days. It's funny, I've talked to a lot of people in the big media business and the trade press, and it got very hot for a while, and a lot of people got real jaded on it and thought, okay, this is kind of a waste of time. Are you sure it's even working? What's your response to some of the cynics who tried ABM and didn't think it worked very well?
Yeah, I find ABM is a very broad term that people use. And I've been in that situation. I was at a previous company. We launched an ABM program and it failed the first time out of the gate. I think one of the reasons is we didn't have as tight of a marketing and sales alignment on it, on exactly what it was, what it looked like, what it meant, how long it was going to take to break through some of these accounts. So
Right.
I think that's crucial. Like upfront, you have to make sure that marketing and sales is aligned in what the strategy is and what the results are going to be. But with an ABM approach, We measure all the channel metrics and stuff that you use from a marketing standpoint to see, are people engaging in our emails? Are they looking at our ads and stuff? But at the end of the day, our success is really based on how many opportunities did we generate from those accounts? How many meetings did we book? How much pipeline did we generate? And then, of course, how much closed won revenue? Because we're really trying to penetrate certain accounts. And we just take a very multi-channel approach, because we find not one single channel is going to be the one that is going to work all the time. And because you're dealing with multiple people within organizations, one person might prefer to go to live events. One person may get absorb more of their information from publications or newsletters they subscribe to. And someone else might like to attend webinars. So we take a very multi-channel approach to kind of surround the account with our messaging and making sure we're hitting on their pain points. But when we look at it, we have an ABM scorecard that we use, and we measure all those things as well as account engagement. And for us, account engagement is about, did they respond? Are they a hand raiser? Did they register for something? Did they come to something? And also, have they had like a recent website visit in X amount of days? So that way we can see intent, because we know they're a good fit. That's why we picked them to begin with, to target and go after them. But the other aspect of that is the intent signals, and are they actually responding to what we're putting out there?
Right. No, this is good stuff. That's a comprehensive approach. That's really good. Let's bring in our next guest. Stick around for the roundtable. Ase Beth Gostanian is dialing in. Tell us a bit about yourself and VidMob and what you folks are doing in the marketing world.
Sure. Thanks, Eric. And thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here. So I'm the VP of product at VidMob. My background is in campaign measurement, digital ad effectiveness, copy testing, all of that good stuff. So steeped in the world of ad and MarTech for quite some time. At VidMob, we are sort of really focused on what we call intelligent creative. And we kind of offer sort of a one-stop shop for video ad creation, and then the analytics and measurements of those ads. So we work with brands and agencies to kind of produce high-performing digital ads that are informed by, a new kind of first-party data that we've pioneered called creative data. And the way that kind of works is there's kind of three legs to that stool. So we built out a global marketplace of freelance video editors, motion graphics designers, et cetera, who are all, trained in platform and industry best practices, et cetera. And we've connected them with a workflow tool so that our clients can kind of come on, be matched with those creators and say, I need this number of Facebook ads. Here's my brief, here's my source media, et cetera. Bring their team on and they can kind of collaborate. And that's really where we started a couple of years ago. And we made a lot of ads, and that was great. And then someone started asking that kind of inevitable question: are any of these good, and how do we know? And so that was that question was really the beginning of what we call creative intelligence. And so we started to build out a new tool that kind of allowed us to, using machine learning and computer vision models, to unpack on a frame by frame basis all of the elements that appear in a video ad and start to correlate those to performance. So we can start to say things like, objects, people, sentiment, colors, et cetera, and understand how all of those individual elements help drive those behavioral metrics, click-through rate, et cetera. So we can start to say, it's when you had the logo in the, top left corner and the cat on the vacuum that your conversion rate went up. When you did the opposite and put it at the back end of the ad and had the dog sleeping in the corner, nobody converted, right? And so that's
so
really
interesting.
Yeah, that's really what we're all about.
That's so. When you talk about creative intelligence, how does that actually work? Like because you're almost like metadata that you're tracking that goes into the ad or something. So it's dynamically generated metadata based upon the content components and location. Because I've noticed that too. Location is key. Where the click button is, where the register button is, or whatever, like that makes a huge difference depending upon where you are. But talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, so I mean, that's exactly what it is. It is metadata. And so essentially there's a couple of pieces to it. What we're doing is using computer vision to run all of these media through and start to pull out all of those different, using bounding boxes to essentially say, at this frame, this appears and here's where it is. And then we're hooked into all of the APIs from all of the social platforms. So we can pull down that media and we can pull down that associated performance data, run that video through our machine learning pipelines, and then we're able to kind of join it back together and say, okay, well, here's all of the things that showed up in your ad. Like if you think about it, a video is really just a series of data, right? And so we're just taking that metadata and then adding the performance data in and being able to make statements about, what is it that's working in this versus what's not working.
And that's all digital ads that you're dealing with. So it's Facebook, YouTube, stuff like that.
Yeah, Facebook. We cover pretty much the full social ecosystem from Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, etc.
That's really cool. So you're hitting all those APIs. I don't know how deep we can go in this conversation, but that's fascinating to me. That's the new way of doing things, right? So for the audience benefit, API, application program interface, it's the slots through which, or the tubes through which you connect information systems in the sky, basically in the cloud. And there are all kinds of issues around API limits, things of that nature. Well, what are your thoughts on how stable that world is? Because typically APIs, you don't want to deprecate them ever unless you really, really have to, right? But you have to learn the APIs. So what can you tell us about knowing and understanding the different APIs?
It's a big part of my job is to make sure that our connections to each one of those platforms is running on the most recent version of that API. So, Facebook will make changes to their API, fairly regularly. And because we have good relationships with those platforms, we get ahead of that and then are able to kind of make those changes on our end if we need to.
Talking all things marketing, so it's near and dear to my heart. I got to tell you, folks, once you can get signal on what people like and don't like, it's really hard to go back into the darkness, man. 20 years ago, advertising was living in the dark ages, man. Like we didn't know who wanted what or when. You'd have to plan out these huge budgets. You would plan annual budgets. Like who does that anymore? Quarterly budgets, monthly budgets, weekly budgets. What's my budget for today? It's getting more and more granular. And our next guest, Stefan, is joining us of Send in Blue. Stefan, pronounce your last name again for me.
It's Shibesta.
Shibesta. Like I said, Stefan Shibesta of Send in Blue is with us. Tell us a bit about yourself and what you folks do in the world of marketing and data.
Hey, Eric. Thanks for having me. My name is Stefan. I'm the CEO of North America for Send in Blue. Send in Blue is an all-in-one online marketing solution for small and medium businesses. So originally founded in 2012, we focused more on the email marketing side of things. And over the last couple of years, we've added more and more channels to our platform. For example, SMS, marketing automation, a CRM, landing page builder, Facebook ads, an inbox feature, and a chat feature. So quite a lot of channels. And we're trying to really empower small businesses to be in equal footing with the big players and give them, accessible tools, easy to use tools that they can use to really perform well when it comes to online marketing.
Yeah, that's great. Multi-channel, omni-channel is here to stay. As I mentioned in the opening, the key is to know who wants what kind of communication. Are you guys able to provide some intelligence in that realm?
Yeah, I mean, we measure all kinds of things when it comes to these channels. And then, we encourage our customers to use that data, for example, in marketing automation to create really successful campaigns, very targeted, very personalized campaigns. Unfortunately, a lot of customers still don't use all the data that's accessible for them. And it's really still a process of educating the customer to a certain degree.
That's interesting. Where are we in terms of the adoption curve, in your opinion, meaning the forward-looking companies that are really leveraging all the daylights out of this stuff versus people who are just kind of living in that stone age? Where are we in terms of that sort of maturity level, do you think?
I think we're advancing, and our vision at Send in Blue has been to really give accessible tools to small and medium businesses that typically wouldn't have the capacity of using and excelling with more advanced tools, right? And what we've seen over the last couple of years is that with more ease of use and more affordable pricing, small and medium businesses are really able to create these very powerful campaigns that they weren't able to do before. Because in the customers we typically deal with, they don't have a dedicated email marketing manager, right? We're happy if there is an online marketing manager or a marketing manager. Sometimes it's even, I don't know, the office admin who's taking care of the marketing activities. So I think we've come a long way, but there's still, especially for small and medium businesses, there's still a lot, like a steep learning curve ahead. And we're trying to really educate the customer, as I say, and provide tools that are easy enough to use, that you don't need a technical background,
right?
That you don't need a PhD, you don't need to have all the marketing knowledge in order to set up these successful campaigns.
Yeah, here's a tough question. Then I'll throw it to you, and then for the roundtables, I'll ask Ase and Beth what they think about it as well. But in the email world, you've got, of course, corporate email, and you have your Gmails and Yahoos and all these other folks that people tend to use. There is still some on Excite out there. There's a few old timers who are on Excite. But the big guys will change dynamics. Like Google has done a lot in that regard. Well, they'll make some policy change that will dramatically affect how your email gets delivered, right? And I know that in the stuff that I use, iContent, they'll say 99.99% deliverability. I'm like, all right, well, what does that exactly mean? Like, did they get it? I can tell if they're opening or not. Usually you can tell. But what are your thoughts on the big guys like Yahoo and Google and these other sort of free email services changing their rules? And do you guys actually coordinate with them? Do you get updates on that stuff? How does that work?
You're mentioning a good point, and a lot of these changes recently have been driven by data privacy issues, especially coming from the big tech. Google or Apple, I would emphasize more than Yahoo, I think. With Apple started with the app tracking transparency program where you can disable tracking inside of your iOS apps, and now with iOS 15 they're making a push into email marketing as well, where it will be possible for users to disable tracking to a certain degree. So that's very interesting, of course. As an email marketing provider, what are the repercussions of this? And marketers will have to adapt to that. But online marketing is constantly changing anyways, right? Email marketing is still very successful. For every $1 you spend, you get $40 back on average. So it will not, and will not kill email marketing. Email is far from that, but it will definitely imply some changes. I think it's good because data privacy has been a rising topic. You mentioned the European GDPR, and in the beginning you mentioned CCPA, and it's more and more important for customers. I'm originally from Europe, so in Europe it's even more relevant, but in the US we've also seen that. Actually, we conducted a survey very recently where 68% of the participants said they're more concerned with data privacy than a year ago, and 65% said they trust third parties less than a year ago. So data privacy is one of the big topics that will change online marketing in general, email marketing in particular as well, and marketers will have to change how they conduct marketing. Yeah.
I'll throw this around the room because it's such a hot topic, because cookies apparently are going to go away. We're talking about that. Stefan mentioned, of course, the iOS and the changes they're making to enable greater privacy, which, again, on one side is good news, but it's definitely not good news for marketers who are trying to track things. Because the problem is if you're tracking something to try to understand, okay, I've got a 20% open rate and that's good, I'm good. And then it starts to go down and you think that you've changed something or screwed something up, and actually no, it's because someone else changed something on their end over which you have no control. Well, that's the hard part, is kind of dissecting and understanding what that all means. But I'll throw it back over to you. Britt, tell us your perspective on these changes. How will that impact reporting and analysis and understanding and all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes to the vanity metrics. I think comment that you made is, what are the real important metrics to measure? As marketers, even just using email marketing as an example, we look at open rates to tell us that, well, was the subject line strong enough? Did it grab their attention? And then we look click-through rates to see if the content that we included in there was interesting enough for them to visit the landing page. But with some of these applications that you use, you can't really tell if some of this stuff is very valuable or not. So with open rates, with some of these email service providers, all it does is show you if there's the pixel on there was kind of downloaded. So was that really a true open or was it not? Or they've got some of the corporate ones and large enterprise companies, have these kind of spam filters and tracking devices where they will kind of scan the email and automatically open it. And it looks like that the person opened it, but they never really did. And then in terms of deliverability, one of the issues I know that we've run into is you can't even tell if you're reaching the inbox. Like you don't even know if it even got to the person. It was delivered.
Right.
But it could have been routed immediately to a junk or a spam folder. So the person never even knew you sent them something. So those are all challenges, but then it comes down to then what is the true metric that you can really rely on and use? And it tends to be reply rate. But the problem with reply rate is those numbers tend to be very low, especially for outbound prospecting. So now you're looking at, hey, if I get a reply rate of more than 1%, that's great. But that's small, so you're looking at some very small numbers at that point. So it does get challenging, I think, when you're looking at that kind of stuff. And then you're not even sure if that's really happening either, because you don't have a lot of those things. You don't know definitively if they're happening, but you may suspect that they are.
And this is the issue, right? And so let's bring Beth in as well to comment on that. And of course, you're coming from a slightly different perspective. You're sort of like the new world, which is tapping data from APIs in YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram, et cetera, and trying to understand that, piece all that together. Whereas email is kind of the old world way of doing it. But what in our business, I can tell you email is still king. It's a transactional system. Like someone will click on a link and they will register for an event from an email. Mm-hmm. I can show you the numbers for Twitter. If we can promote on Twitter all day long, and we'll get absolutely nobody registering from Twitter. I don't know why it is, but it just is. And so at a certain point, you have to accept that. But what do you think about all these changing rules, Beth?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, in my world, what we think about and sort of how we think this will sort of affect our brands and our clients, it's going to kind of force them to evolve, right? Like if you think about digital video campaigns, you've got two levers to pull, right? As it relates to performance, you've got the media lever and you've got the creative lever. The media lever is really where digital marketing has been kind of focused for the last 10 years or so, because cookies and mobile tracking and the ecosystem that has kind of developed around them has made digital marketing a little bit easier, right? Because you have a lot of control as a marketer and kind of peace of mind knowing that your media dollars are being optimized and maximized to the right people. We can use cookies and mobile tracking to find the best audiences, what they're doing, where they spend their time, what they're buying, etc. But the thing about that though is like optimizing targeting really only impacts about 25% of performance, right? So it's kind of the creative and the message that's starting to communicate and make the biggest difference. I think, recently we've seen reports out there. I think Google had one last year that was, creative is responsible for 70% of campaign performance. So for the longest time, we've kind of been focused on the lever that has the smallest impact, And so in our world, it's almost it's an opportunity for marketers now to shift their focus and think about, if I fast forward to a world where I can't rely on that media lever quite as much, what does that mean for me? Well, that all of a sudden I can't be lazy about my creative anymore, right?
Yeah.
I've got to make it work harder for me. So to me, it's forcing the industry to evolve, and you've got to make your creative work a little bit harder for you.
Love it. Well, folks, we've been talking to several experts today from Terminus, VidMob, and Sendinblue. Look them all up on LinkedIn. This does conclude our show. We archive all these webinars, of course.